You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. As is the case with many video games, Fallout 4 has its fair share of terrible weapons. While I've discussed some of the worst weapons in Fallout 4 in the past, I figured today might be a good day to sit down and discuss some of the worst unique guns and weapons in Fallout 4. As far as Fallout 4 goes, unique weapons are typically variants of regular weapons with special legendary weapon effects. So for example, there is the Big Boy Launcher and the Fat Man Launcher. The Big Boy is essentially a unique version of the Fat Man with the two-shot legendary weapon effect, but at its core, it's still a Fat Man. This list will mostly include weapons that are like that, but it will also include some bad unique weapons with unique models and unique weapon effects. Now, before we get into this video, I may mention some weapons that are popular with the player base. Allow me to explain the nuance of my perspective with some of these weapons, because you may be able to find weapons that are much better than these if you know what to look for. But without further ado, these will be the top 10 worst unique guns and weapons in Fallout 4, starting now. Number 10, the Cryolator. Well, now that I've just triggered half of the people watching this video, I want to quickly mention that I'm going to be discussing some nuances of the Cryolator that make it a bad weapon in my opinion. What I think I can agree with most of the community on is that the Cryolator is actually a pretty great weapon, especially with the crystallizing barrel customization. Now, assuming you have the crystallizing barrel applied, the Cryolator will benefit from Heavy Gunner, Demolition Expert, and the Bloody Mess perks. And while I haven't tried it myself, it stands to reason it would also benefit from the Explosive Bobblehead as well. Now, you may be wondering, what's wrong with the Cryolator? Well, the problem is finding cryo cells. While you do get about 200 or so upon acquiring this weapon, they can be extremely difficult to acquire after the initial 200 you receive. While this isn't as bad as Alien Blaster Pistol ammo, it's still enough of a disincentive to make you not want to use this gun. Even when you can buy cryocells, they are extremely expensive. Cryocells have an in-game value of 10 bottle caps each, so if you're even thinking about buying these things, you're going to need 11 charisma and several perks that lower prices at vendors. So while the Cryolator may be a good gun, it's no use if you don't have ammo. Given how rare cryocells are, there's a good chance you won't be using this gun after you deplete your initial stock of cryocell ammo. Number 9, the Spray and Pray. And now that I have triggered half of the audience again, let me explain why I think that the Spray and Pray is awful. And this is a nuanced opinion. The most important thing we need to mention is that the Spray and Pray has an awesome legendary weapon effect. I think we can all agree that the explosive effect is really powerful, especially after you've acquired the Demolition Expert perk and the Explosive Bobblehead. The problem with the Spray and Pray is that it's a submachine gun, which is possibly one of the worst weapons in Fallout 4. Now, the submachine gun is about on par with the automatic pipe pistol or rifle in terms of base damage, and that has ammo that costs 3 times as much. Not to mention that you can carry roughly twice as much 38 caliber ammo per pound than you can 45 caliber ammo per pound in survival mode. And assuming you could find one, an explosive automatic pipe rifle would be lighter and cheaper to use than a Spray and Pray. You would be better off saving the caps required to buy this gun and get the Kiloton Radium Rifle from Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC. Not only are you dealing way more damage per shot with the same ammo, but you get radiation damage tacked on top of that as well. It's not really worth the time to try and track down Cricket just so you can buy this thing, especially when there are better options out there. Number 8, the Reckoning. There's a good chance that many of you didn't even know this weapon existed. Now, like the Cryolator, the Reckoning would probably be a good weapon. After all, it's based on the Ripper, which is already an impressive melee weapon, and the Sentinel's legendary weapon effect is really good because it reduces damage the player takes while standing still. And assuming you could combine this with 6 armor pieces that all bear the Sentinel's effect, you would never take damage and enemies would flee during combat. The problem with this unique Ripper is that it's impossible to obtain. This is because in order to get this particular weapon, you have to build a level 3 weapons merchant at one of your settlements. And then from there, you will need to find a random NPC named Smiling Larry and get the guy to go to the settlement where you've built your level 3 weapons merchant. Now, assuming you can actually find Smiling Larry, he's not an essential NPC, and there is a glitch which makes Smiling Larry disappear after being sent to the settlement that you want him at. This requires you to enter a slew of console commands on the PC version just to get him to appear at that settlement. And then you have to enter even more console commands to actually get him to work at the weapons merchant that you just built. Honestly guys, it's just not worth the hassle, and if you have the Far Harbor DLC, just get the Harvester Ripper. It's easier to get, and it's more fun to use anyway. Number 7. The Gainer. You could make the argument that the Gainer is better than a .44 pistol, and I would say you're right about that. However, I would also ask you this. Wouldn't you rather have the Gainer, or would you rather have a .44 pistol with the 2-shot, furious, wounding, or even the never-ending effects? Because I can guarantee you all of those weapons would be better than the Gainer is. The Gainer's problem is that the weapon it's based on is actually really good. Until you can get the Western Revolver from Nuka World, the .44 pistol is going to be one of your highest base damage pistols in Fallout 4. The problem is that the incendiary effect just sucks. The quote-unquote burn damage is noticeable up against really weak enemies, however once you progress later on in the game, the burn damage that the incendiary effect provides is almost not even noticeable. You have to get really close to your TV or monitor to even see the damage over time that the burn damage applies sometimes. I think the other thing too is that if you want a unique .44 pistol, you can do so much better. There's the Eddie's piece, which has the crippling effect, which deals more damage to an opponent's limbs, and there's Kellogg's pistol, which has the relentless effect, which refills your action points upon a critical hit. Both of these weapons are good and are a better use of your ammo than the Gainer will ever be. I guess if you still want the Gainer for some reason though, you can get it by solving the Vitali Pump House puzzle. Honestly, don't waste your time. Number 6. The Lucky Eddie. So the Lucky Eddie is a weapon you get from helping Alan Lee in Far Harbor destroy Acadia. The Lucky Eddie is obtained as a part of the Way Life Should Be quest that is central to Far Harbor's story. As a reward, this gun isn't much of an improvement over the standard lever-action rifle. You aren't getting any damage improvement whatsoever, and this is because the Lucky Eddie has the Lucky Legendary effect for armor pieces. The Lucky Legendary effect for weapons is what appears on the Righteous Authority laser rifle, and if the Lucky Eddie had that exact same legendary weapon effect, perhaps the Lucky Eddie would be much more useful. You've also got to consider that the lever-action rifle on its own isn't particularly great. Not only is .45-70 caliber ammo fairly heavy for the amount of damage that it can potentially deal, but even after 6 months or so of the Far Harbor DLC being out, the reload animation for the lever-action rifle is still broken. Regardless of whether you fire all 5 shots or just one, you will always put 5 bullets into the magazine. For compulsive reloaders like myself, this is a problem. If Bethesda somehow is watching this video, please fix the reload animation for the lever-action rifle. It would make all lever-action rifles much better. Number 5. The Ashmaker. So just like the Gainer, the Ashmaker has the incendiary effect. And yes, while the Ashmaker is better than a regular minigun, wouldn't you rather have an explosive minigun? There's also the issue of the minigun itself. While the minigun is quite powerful early on in Fallout 4, its low base damage becomes a problem when you start encountering enemies with high health and decent damage resistance. It will sometimes feel like you have to unload all 500 bullets into somebody's face until they die, a feat that's accomplished with the vast majority of other weapons in Fallout 4 in about 5 or 10 shots at the most. While I can't say for certain, it's possible that Bethesda originally intended for players to upgrade from the minigun to the Gatling laser. Not only does the Gatling laser start off with a similar amount of base damage, but the base damage can be significantly improved beyond what it starts at. As for the minigun, you go from 8 base damage to 10 base damage. What's the point of even upgrading if you can only get 2 more damage? All this said, I would recommend you save your 5mm ammo and try your luck at acquiring an explosive minigun. That weapon is actually amazing, as you will have something that is ridiculously powerful. Otherwise, if you want the Ashmaker, you can get it during the Big Dig side quest. You can either kill Bobby or Fahrenheit will give it to you, or you can kill Fahrenheit and loot it off her corpse. Number 4, the Zeta Gun. So I'm sure this isn't a surprise to anybody, but the Zeta Gun is a piece of crap. What I do think is funny is that the Zeta Gun is based off of a unique weapon customization for the Gamma Gun that seems to actually make the Gamma Gun worse. Provided the player doesn't have any customizations or any perks or skills that improve the amount of radiation damage you can deal, the Gamma Gun should have a base damage of 110 rad damage. And for the sake of comparison, the Zeta Gun has a base damage of just 10 rad damage. This is literally a 91% decrease in base damage. The theory is that the Zeta Gun should deal more damage to Lorenzo if you fight him during the Secret of Cabot House side quest. Now, while I haven't tested this myself, I do know that you're better off siding with Jack Cabot because you receive the Lorenzo's artifact, which is actually a really good, unique variant of the Gamma Gun. While you can apply good customizations like the electrical mod and you can apply a better grip to the Zeta Gun, you're better off using either of these mods on either a regular Gamma Gun or on the Lorenzo's artifact. Ultimately, remove the Zeta Wave barrel and you will instantly have a better weapon. Number 3, the Death from Above. So as some of you probably know, the missile launcher is already a questionable weapon. Not only can the weapon's damage not be improved at a workbench, but missile ammo is very heavy in survival mode. Assuming you had the quad barrel attachment for your missile launcher, your magazine would weigh almost 28 pounds. While you can boost the damage with the Demolition Expert perk and Heavy Gunner perks, the end result isn't as impressive or as practical as the Fat Man is. With the Fat Man, you know whatever is going to get hit with that mini nuke is probably going to die. The missile launcher, on the other hand, isn't as much of a guarantee. The Death from Above is essentially a missile launcher with the Nimble legendary weapon effect. What this effect does is makes you move around much faster while you're aiming your weapon. Otherwise, you don't get any sort of damage improvement. Now, it would be one thing if you moved faster and you got double damage while aiming. However, that's, again, not the case. The Nimble effect isn't going to make the Death from Above any better than a standard missile launcher. At least with the party starter, you get improved damage up against humans. What's even worse is that you have to become a paladin in the Brotherhood of Steel before you can even buy this piece of crap. Emphasis on buy this piece of crap. You don't even get this weapon for free upon becoming a paladin in the Brotherhood of Steel. Okay, so if you insist on having a good missile launcher and don't want to deal with the legendary farming, get the party starter instead. Number 2, the Salvaged Assaultron Head. The Salvaged Assaultron Head was added with Fallout 4's very first DLC, Automatron. Now, as you're fighting with the various enemies of Fallout 4, you're probably going to come across an Assaultron. Whenever those enemies fire their head lasers, it can be really devastating to your health bar. So naturally, you would think if you could have one of those as like a pistol, that would be amazing, right? Well, no. The Assaultron head has a multitude of problems. The first is that provided your radiation resistance isn't high enough, you're going to be taking radiation damage every time you charge and fire this weapon. Thankfully, this can be negated if you wear power armor or have some form of high radiation resistance. Another issue with this weapon is that it can't be upgraded. While 35 base damage is fairly decent for fusion cells really early on in Fallout 4, both your Institute and standard laser rifles will outperform the weapon later on in the game. Plus, unlike the Assaultron head, they don't require 5 ammo to deal a decent amount of damage to enemies. Essentially, the Salvaged Assaultron head is a laser musket in pistol form. While the Assaultron head is somewhat of an improvement over the laser musket, it doesn't fix the laser musket's core problem, and that's the fact that you can increase base damage. If you could, maybe the Assaultron head would be a more viable choice. If you play through Automatron and kill Ivy for her Tesla power armor, make sure you loot her chest on the way out. That way you can get this weapon and other weapons like the Tesla rifle or the Assaultron blade. Number 1, the Acid Soaker. Sadly, the Acid Soaker is one of the more conceptually interesting weapons that got introduced with Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC. What this weapon does is deals poison damage and also reduces damage resistance for about 5 seconds or so. If you've played Borderlands 2, this effect is somewhat similar to the Slag ability, which can double or even triple the amount of damage that your weapons deal for a short period of time. So as you can imagine, I wanted to like this gun. That said, the Acid Soaker is pretty terrible for several reasons. The biggest reason is ammo. While you can actually obtain ammo for the Acid Soaker, the acid concentrate ammo that it uses is incredibly difficult to craft. To craft 1 bullet, you will need 20 acid, 2 adhesive, and 8 glass. Keep in mind, that's just for 1 shot, and as you can imagine, this is totally impractical. To make things even worse, the Acid Soaker doesn't have enough range, and the projectile speed is slow and is in an arc. This means that you're very likely to miss with this particular weapon. And when you start considering that you're losing 20 acid per shot, the Acid Soaker is just not worth using. Honestly guys, save your Nuka-cade tickets. The Acid Soaker is just not worth the hassle. Get literally anything else. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video, and if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care and I'll see y'all next time.